Hello Power Rangers Lightning Collection fans, and welcome back to Toku Topics. Now that it's the end of 2022, I'm going to look back at all of the Lightning Collection figure releases from this year and pick out my top 10 best and favorite Lightning Collection figures, as well as my top 5 worst and least favorite Lightning Collection figures. So last year I did a video where I gave my top 10 of 2021, but this year I decided to factor in a top 5 worst, and that's because this was Lightning Collection's worst year in my personal opinion for the line. We had some really good figures released this year, however this year's big overwhelming problem was quality control. We've talked about it on Saturday Lightning Storm episodes many times, and that is definitely something that I cannot ignore for this year, and it does definitely bring down the overall quality and the way I'm going to remember certain figures for the line going forward. Now, for the parameters of this video, there were 29 Lightning Collection figures released in the year of 2022. This is the third least populated year of Lightning Collection figures thus far. 29 is not terrible. That makes it higher than year 1. That makes it lower than year 2 and lower than year 3, but being higher than year 1 by only 8 figures is not great, but that's fine. I think that there was a reasonably respectable number of Lightning Collection figures. We got a ton of the back half of the year like we usually do, but these are the 29 figures that I will be able to count as part of my list here. Now, typically I would like to not do this list until I have all the figures that I'm, putting into the consideration pile, but I do not have them all. So I have 27 of the 29 figures. At the time of this recording, I yet to have my Morphed Ken and Morphed Cammy figures from the Street Fighter collaboration, because they just recently came out to like comic shops and stuff like that, and are not necessarily readily available just yet here. And also you have some figures here that are definitely not super wide available yet, like Wave 13 for the most part of it, but since it did release in the calendar year of 2022, I will be considering them 2022 figures, even though they're kind of supposed to be 2023 figures. So Beast Morphers Yellow, the Wild Force Putrid, and Dino Fury Green are only going to be applicable to this list and will not be able to be on next year's list. But with all that out of the way there, let's go ahead and rank the top 10 best Lightning Collection figures and the top 5 worst Lightning Collection figures of 2022. And to get the bad out of the way here, which I don't think there's any figure here that is absolutely atrocious for the most part here, but we're going to go ahead and get the top 5 worst out of the way, just so we can kind of get the negativity out before we get to the highlights, because there's a lot of really good highlights for this year, and that's why I'm only doing 5 worst, because I didn't think that there was another 5 that were worth it being considered the worst here. But there was enough to be considered the worst, starting with number 5, In Space Blue with the Galaxy Glider from Deluxe Wave 1. This release isn't bad. It's not necessarily a bad release per se, it's just one of those releases that's very much kind of unnecessary. It's being a re-release of a figure from 2021 so soon after its initial release here, so the TJ figure that you get here is exactly the same from the 2021 version, and the only thing that's really new here is his Galaxy Glider. Now, he has to be included here also because of his quality control problem, which was fixed with a running change, where the Galaxy Glider had an X symbol instead of the proper envelope V symbol that's supposed to be there for the Mega Ranger / In Space logo. That was corrected, and that does make this thing overall a lot better in the long run, but this is kind of where we're seeing how the deluxe figures are not really off to a fantastic start whatsoever here, because I think that whenever they release vehicles for just one-off members of the team, because when you have Galaxy Gliders in the show, the whole team has them, so when you only make it for Blue so far, he's this odd man out here, and you don't have the rest for the other ones, and it's like, are they going to re-release everybody to get these out? And it kind of just makes, I don't really like when they release team vehicles in Deluxe. I think Deluxe should be saved for, Rangers who have one-off unique cycles, like in Space Silver or SPD Omega or something. Those are perfect examples of what Deluxe figures with vehicles should be, in my opinion, and this release just kind of feels forced. It is a little easier of a way to get In Space Blue outside of the 2-pack if you really don't want Psycho Silver, but for the most part, this figure is fine. It just didn't really wow me so much, so that's why it's at the bottom of my least favorite list here, but it's still not a terrible figure. Number 4 is just a group of figures, and that is the Target exclusive Ninja Rangers. These figures, you're gonna see them again later on, spoiler alert, are such a mixed bag. So for the worst part here on number 4 at the list, I'm just putting the whole group of them here because 4 of the 7 of them are the exact same figure, just painted a different color, and 3 of them are the same way for the other ones. These figures have terrible quality control, and if you even get ones that have good paint applications on them, they just don't function nicely, so they just don't really work as nice action figures. Their joints are very strange with the way that they break them up at the thigh cut, and also especially how the elbow joints look, and everything just feels so stiff, or if it's not stiff, it's incredibly loose and wants to like spin around, it's so loose. So these figures just are kind of a mess to hold, they're a mess to deal with, they're a mess to get ones that aren't broken in the packaging, or missing accessories, or have duplicate hands, or whatever it may be. And I just think that this was a complete kind of disaster here. I'm happy that they did these. I'm also happy, because of how kind of iffy they turned out, that they got them out as soon as possible. But then again, they're re-releasing them again as Cobra Kai figures in 2023, so we're not done with this mold, I guess, anytime soon here. And it's definitely not going to improve. I'm pretty sure it's not going to do that. So these are just kind of the weirdest batch of Lightning Collection figures we have so far. Like I said, happy that we have them, but they definitely could have been better. Number 3 for the worst here is going to be Color Swap Yellow. So I am going to be breaking up the Color Swap 2-pack as 2 separate distinct figures. Color Swap Yellow is kind of a mess. There's like 3 main reasons why I think this figure is not so great. I like the idea of it a lot. I love the Color Swap 2-pack. If you checked out my review of that set a couple months ago, I really do like that set in concept and even in execution as well. However, with this figure here, like I said, there's 3 main problems that just really make it not good to me. And the first one is the pinless body that it uses, which it actually kind of introduces for the male figures here, is so loose. His legs, his knees are so loose and wobbly. Everything wants to wiggle around on him. He doesn't feel like a sturdy figure whatsoever. That is kind of the least of the worst problems. The second one is that Jason comic head sculpt is atrocious. It looks like somebody melted his face. And when you compare it with the Trini head sculpt that we have with the Red Ranger in the set, I don't know what happened here. Like this, it just does not look like a good head sculpt, even depicting a comic variation, which is what it's supposed to be doing. And I don't know what happened with that. And then the third thing is the fact that they didn't bother to make a brand new Yellow Ranger helmet. So they just gave you the female one to put on a male body, which creates this really weird effect where Jason just looks like he has a very tiny head with like giant shoulders. It just makes the proportions are so strange. That is also a problem with the Trini figure in the set. But for her, I feel like it works a little bit better, and we will talk about her later on. But like, I don't know, Jason here just feels like he didn't really get a lot of love here, which I kind of understand, because like, you know, this set was obviously something pretty easy for them to throw together with just a couple new accessories here and there. But yeah, the execution on this one is just not great. I do like that you kind of have a male figure to kind of represent if you wanted to have a more accurate Sentai G-Ranger team. You kind of have that going for you here. So there are some cool upsides to it, but it just kind of turned out strange. Coming in at number 2, you knew it had to be on this list here, the Wild Force Lunar Wolf Ranger figure. I gotta admit, if this video was made like a month ago, this would absolutely be number 1, because until recently, this was my absolute least favorite Lightning Collection figure for a multitude of reasons. We all know why. I'm gonna very briefly give you the Cliff Note versions of it here, but if you don't know, this figure is hilariously inaccurate. So this figure, when it was first shown off, it had 5 stripes on his chest when he's supposed to have 6. He didn't have a holster for his lunar Q, and his boots were white when they were supposed to be silver. Hasbro did end up fixing the stripes and the boots with a series of running changes, which took a while to fully come to fruition on store shelves, which created a bunch of different variants that crazy people like me tracked down. But then, even with all of that, they still never gave him the holster. So even if you bought all 5 variations between the 3 running changes in a regular box and the 2 running changes in the Walmart exclusive Power Pop Art variant boxes, you still don't have an accurate Lunar Wolf Ranger. And the fact that I have 5 of this figure in my collection, and I still don't think any of them look 100% good, is not a good thing. And I didn't think that was going to be even a possibility for a figure to top this here, until we got Time Force Blue. So coming in at number 1 is Time Force Blue with the Vector Cycle from Deluxe Wave 2. Now, when we first saw this figure, we should have had some big red flags right away when we had the whole problem on his box with the Time Force red symbol on the chest being present on every single instance of the suit being shown on the box art. But then the figure actually released, and it is a complete train wreck. As we talked about in some more recent episodes of Lightning Storm, tons of people are getting this figure with missing accessories or duplicate accessories, or the figure is completely broken in the box, or the figure breaks right out of the box. It's nearly impossible to get him to sit on the Vector Cycle in a way that would be a human actually riding a motorcycle. You pretty much have to have him standing on there, and don't even think about really having him grab the handlebars, because he really can't do it. The figure himself is incredibly wobbly. It is a terrible mold. The paint applications are not great. The sabers that he comes with are not fully accurate. It's just, oh, it's terrible. It's quite bad, actually, to the point where I just want them to restart Time Force. They have screwed it up the first time with Time Force Red. Was not the greatest one with QC problems back in 2020 with the helmet. But here, it's just so bad. Just don't even go forward with this body. I do not want to see any other figures use this body. I don't want any more Time Force Rangers until we fix this, because this is bad. And Lucas right here is currently my least favorite Lightning Collection figure pretty much ever, besides Lunar Wolf and like the Pudgy Pig and the PulseCon box in 2021. Those are a very low bar to hit, and I didn't think that we would have a figure that was this widespread with problems. But really, Lucas is like the absolute like poster child for Lightning Collection problems in 2022. He has them all. Incorrect box art renders, bad paint applications, incorrect accessories, functionality doesn't even work out advertised. It's the perfect example of what the Lightning Collection really can stoop to a very low level on. And that is pretty much going to do it for my top 5 worst Lightning Collection figures of 2022. So now that we have all the negativity out of the way, let's go to the top 10, because we had some really good figures in 2022. And kicking off number 10 on my top 10, it's the Ninja Rangers again. So I told you the Ninja Rangers were going to appear. I kind of said that back during the worst segment a couple minutes ago. And the reason why they're on both lists is because once you get them in a pose and you're done dealing with their nonsense, they look pretty good. So I really do like how they look, especially when you compose them with like the Retromorph Ninjor, who is in the same scale as them. And you do get some pretty cool poses with them. I do really like the movable bandana strings on the back. I really do like the multiple heads that you get to kind of have the different variations between sort of the 1995 movie and also kind of the morphing sequence from season 3. I really do like how they look. I just, every time I'm trying to set them up for a display, I don't want to mess with them at all, because everything feels like it's going to break, or it feels like it's going to be too loose that it won't be able to hold any poses. But like I said, once you get it there, you have a pretty nice looking collection, and the fact that they were able to blast through pretty much an entire team in 1 year, pretty much only one of these was considered a 2021 figure, and that was Tommy. His figure actually made it out before 2022 even started, but the other 6 figures did not come out until 2022, so for the most part you can consider them just kind of general 2022 figures for the most part. The Catherine duplicate thing is kind of annoying, but I get why they did it. I do like that they gave Tom Whalen the opportunity to do another civilian head sculpt and actually make Cat's box unique. It is a little annoying to have 2 Ninja Pink Ranger figures, but it's not like the absolute worst thing here. I'm fine with it. For number 9 on this list, I have Dino Fury Red from Wave 11. So this was the first time starting a brand new team in the Lightning Collection in a pretty good amount of time. Wave 11 kicked off Wild Force with Lunar Wolf and Dino Fury with the Red Ranger. It always is nice to get the current team of Power Rangers to be on the shelves. Their civilian head sculpts are typically some of the more better ones because they actually can 3D scan the current actors, so you have a better chance of the head likeness turning out more accurately. And I think Zato's here is one of those pretty good examples to where it is pretty good. There's some minor things with this guy that makes me not want to bump it up higher, and that's because like the chest design with the lightning bolt is very strange. These are all kind of things I've mentioned in all of these figures' individual reviews, which I'm sure as I'm talking about all these figures, since I reviewed every single one of these on the channel at some point this year, they're probably popping up on screen somewhere, so you can see them and click on them and get my more thorough thoughts on all these guys. But there's really nothing wrong with this figure that I can think of besides like that chest design. I do still kind of think his helmet is a little too small for his figure, but since this is the top 10 list here now and we're not talking about negatives as much, I do really like this figure a lot. He does have a really nice metallic silver paint to recreate that part. The helmet sculpt is fantastic. I like the morpher morphed onto his wrist there. I think it's pretty much exactly what you want a Dino Fury Red figure to be in the Lightning Collection, except for just some little minor things, and I have like nothing wrong to say with it. It's perfect to me. It comes with exactly what I want it to have, with accessories, with the Chroma Fury Saber and everything like that. And yeah, this is pretty much a very run-of-the-mill kind of bare-bones Lightning Collection figure in terms of like bringing what you would expect at the table. But that's fine. A lot of figures are just going to be that. A lot of them are not going to necessarily go above and beyond, and they don't necessarily need to, and Zato's kind of a perfect example of that from Wave 11. Wave 11 makes another return here at number 8 on the list with the Zeo Cog, which if you're keeping track, this is now 3/4 of the wave that have made it onto either the best or the worst list. It is also going to be the final Wave 11 figure to make it on this list. I didn't put Dino Charge Pink on either list because I figured she was just kind of fine. I didn't really feel like she goes one way or the other. But the reason why the Zeo Cog is on this list is because this is how you do a re-release. So I think that Hasbro actually did a very good job making us all buy cogs again, for numerous different reasons. So it's no secret whatsoever that this is just a repack of the cog from the Hasbro Pulse 2-pack from 2021, specifically the silver cog in that 2-pack, and that's perfectly fine. I don't necessarily ever have problems with them re-releasing army builders, because you technically can never have too many army builders. So if they repackage it out there again and you buy it in a new release with a new box or new accessories, you're still just kind of adding to your overall army, and it doesn't feel like you are still double dipping, but it feels like a little bit more of a justifiable double dipping. Now, they did change the figure a little bit there with that translucent kind of chest pattern, which is supposed to be when the Rangers are like shocking them with electricity and they're like charging up or something like that. Which, okay, that's kind of a, it's kind of a stretch to say that that's what the actual effect is on the actual finished product, but there is an actual difference between the Wave 11 one and the 2-pack one that you can actually notice if you have both of them together, which I think is really, really cool. However, as I'm sure you probably are expecting, my favorite part about this figure, in pretty much every conceivable way, is that he comes with Rocky's Tonfas to actually complete your figure from Wave 4 from 2 years ago. So I'm so happy that Hasbro decided to give us his Tonfas. I think this is a perfectly acceptable way to do it, and I really like that they were willing to include a completely different figure, a completely different character, entirely's weapons, with this guy here. Now, if you army build this specific version of the cog, you're going to have tons of Tonfas that you're probably not going to need, so that's why this is like the one army builder figure that I did not army build. I only bought one of this particular release, because I only wanted one set of cogs, or one set of Tonfas, and I have plenty of cogs from the 2-pack already, so that's perfectly fine with me. So in that case, I think it's one of those ones where it's just nice to buy one to get your Tonfas if you have Rocky, add to your cog collection if you already have the 2-pack, and it's perfectly fine. I just added another cog to my army, and that's all I needed to do with it. It's perfect. It's a perfect way to give you a cheap figure in the Wave that Hasbro didn't have to put too much money into retooling anything. The only things that are different is that slight effect on the chest, the Tonfas, and brand new Tom art to be a singular release. And I love exactly what they did with this. Perfect. From one of the more recent waves, we have Dino Thunder Yellow at number 7. This figure is kind of like Zato's, where it's pretty much exactly what you would want this figure to be, and I really don't have many complaints about it whatsoever. I think the Kira figure that they released to complete your main Dino Thunder trio is really good. They finally fixed the Dino Thunder visor problem by painting her visor with the white trim that she's always supposed to have instead of the silver one, which I very, very much appreciated there. I think that the head sculpt for Kira turned out pretty solid. It's not like the most perfect head sculpt we've ever had in the Lightning Collection, but it's still also not one of the worst. She has her Terra Grips, she has a Thundermax Blaster, which for some reason is the best and most detailed version of that weapon, even compared to what Connor and Ethan had from Waves 7 and 8. For whatever particular reason. My only complaint with this figure at all is the fact that she doesn't have a Thundermax Saber like the other two guys do. But I never really used the Thundermax Sabers, neither did the Dino Thunder Rangers themselves that much anyway. So while she has exactly what I want her to have. She has a holster weapon that would be accurate to the suit to have, actually have a holster weapon there. So I'm appreciated that we have that. And she has the Terra Grips, which is what I'm sure like 95% of people are going to pose her with. So we're good. And I like that she has a custom effect piece for the Thundermax Blaster if you do want to use it. It's great. I think Kira turned out fantastically. It's another great addition to my personal favorite team and season of Power Rangers, and I really have no other complaints with it. It's really good. Now finally, a deluxe figure makes this list at number 6 with Snizzard from Deluxe Wave 2. So while the deluxe figures, as you saw with the worst list, have not been off to a great start, I'm really hoping that we're going to pick up the pace here with Deluxe Wave 3 in 2023, which do look very impressive. Snizzard is one of my favorite monster figures that they've released for the Lightning Collection for a number of different reasons. Not only do I kind of like the design of this guy, I've always kind of liked the design of this guy, but they did a really good job with this one. I love the accordion jaw feature you have going on here. It actually feels like there's something cool and substantial that would justify the deluxe monster price point for this guy. And while I think most of the monsters are still worth their price point anyway, because they are those brand new unique molds that tower over the Rangers still, we've been talking about the size discrepancies between monsters and Rangers in the Lightning Collection for nearly 3 years. They're just never going to fix it. They're never going to have them scale properly. It bothers a lot of people. It also doesn't bother a lot of people. You're never really going to please everybody there. I love his custom apple effect piece for the top of his head. He has a bendable wire, which doesn't work the absolute best, but at least it's an attempt to have something cool in his tail, which makes it like nice and rubbery to kind of give you some extra posability and functionality with that. And yeah, I really do like it. Snizzard's great. I really have like nothing else to say about the figure necessarily, but this is like exactly what I would want a monster figure release from the Lightning Collection to be. My only like real complaint with it is the fact that his bow gets horribly disfigured inside of the packaging because of the plastic-free packaging initiative that we got starting in 2022. It just gets all like shoved in there and gets all bent up because it's like a soft plastic. But that's also going to be kind of, your figure may vary on that one. You might get a bow that's perfectly fine. You also might want to get one that's pretty messed up and bent and stuff, and you can fix that. You shouldn't have to. That's not really the fault of the figure, it's just kind of the fault of the packaging and presentation, which, you know, still knocks it down a little bit there, but Snizzard honestly turned out pretty good. I'm happy with him. So kicking off my top 5 Lightning Collection figures of 2022 is the other half of the Color Swap 2-pack, Color Swap Trini. Yes, love this, very good. So while the Yellow Ranger one I had some problems with, and that's why he ended up in the worst list, this is how you do it. So we have a female Mighty Morphin Red body here, which is not like the most craziest thing in the world. It's very similar to the pink and yellow ones, although it is pinless, so it is a brand new body. And the female pinless bodies have been significantly better than the male ones, because now we have double jointed elbows on the figures for the females, and I think that the new head sculpts, the new head joints that connect the helmets on there, feel like they're going to be a little bit more sturdy over time, hopefully. I don't feel like the female figures are as prone to break anymore as they kind of were used to, and I have had before. Like, my Psycho Yellow broke on me, so like, I'm always scared to mess with the female figures just because of how fragile and thin those joints are, but I feel like we are definitely getting better with it. The Trini head sculpt for the comic version of her here is pretty good. I really do like it a lot. I think that it's not like the greatest like show accurate version of her, but it's not supposed to be. It's supposed to be comic accurate, and for that, I really do think that they captured it, especially when you compare it with Jason. But of course, one of the best things about this figure that I have to mention, because it's great for the figure itself, but it's also just great for the line, and that is that brand new Mighty Morphin Red helmet. Yes, that's it. That's exactly what we wanted to see here from a Power Rangers Lightning Collection figure, to finally correct the really bad looking helmet that we had back in 2019 on the Dragon Shield version of Red from the SDCC 2-pack, and also the regular version of Red from Wave 3. And finally, 3 years later, we have a nice corrected helmet that is swappable between those other versions, and significantly, in my opinion, improves the look of those figures. I'm sure it's an inevitability that we get that helmet released on a proper male Mighty Morphin Red in 2023, especially with the 30th anniversary right around the corner. But for now, this being exclusive to this 2-pack is kind of annoying, but I know a lot of people honestly bought this 2-pack specifically for that helmet, and that's how you know they did a good job with it, even though right now it's kind of an annoying way to get it. But it does make the actual Trini figure itself pretty good from the get-go. Her helmet maybe looks a little too big on there, kind of the opposite of the Jason problem with the Yellow Ranger helmet. But I think proportion-wise, it looks a little bit more better to have the male helmet on the female body than the other way around. And so for Trini here, I like it a lot. Number 4 on this list is going to go to the metallic White Ranger figure, which is one of those examples of just the Lightning Collection giving you a figure that I really wanted them to do, a figure that's relatively overdue, and giving me basically exactly what I wanted out of it. So the Metallic Rangers kicked off in 2020 with the Pink Ranger figure at Hasbro Pulse. Then we got 4 more of them in 2021 with the rest of the core team. And so it was always just a question of when were we going to get Metallic White, not were we going to get Metallic White. It took a little bit more longer than I was expecting them to do, but finally over the summer of 2022, they did release Metallic White as a Hasbro Pulse exclusive. And it's perfect. Now, one thing that's interesting is that they did give him a more comic-looking Tommy head sculpt for here, and with the metallic armors appearing in the comics around the time that the Metallic White figure came out, it was a really good way to have some brand synergy to kind of promote the two things together if that was the intention. Now, one thing I love about this figure that was something that I really wanted them to do was, since each of the Metallic Rangers came with their shard of the Zeo Crystal, even though they didn't match up to who had it, but it matched up color-wise, Tommy's wouldn't have one, so everybody was hoping that it would either include some kind of piece to attach all the sub-crystals together, or just come with a unified Zeo Crystal, and that's exactly what it does. It comes with a unified Zeo Crystal. Fantastic. Now, of course, I've talked more about the actual accessories of this figure than the figure itself. Is the figure itself good? Yeah, it's fine. It's exactly what you would expect it to be. It's the Wave 1 Mighty Morphin White that kicked off the entire Lightning Collection back in 2019, just done up on the translucent glittery plastic. And it's exactly what you expect it to be, but that's fine. It's all it needs to be. They also, of course, had his box to match all the other ones with the glittery effect on the artwork, and he was one of the very last figures to make it out before the changeover to plastic free, which would prevent Tom Whalen artwork from being on this box and from matching the others. So we got Metallic White at just the perfect time to have a very nice matching set of all 6 metallic armors with sparkly boxes to fit on your shelf and just be perfect. And yes, this is exactly what I wanted this to be, and I have no complaints about how it turned out. It's fantastic. And now for my top 3, we are going to start with the Wild Force Putrid, which I'm laughing as I say it because I cannot believe that this figure is in my top 3 of the year. Because it's fantastic. It's such a good figure. I also absolutely love whenever they do very obscure Power Rangers characters in the Lightning Collection. I'm looking at you, Fighting Spirit Green, being our first Tommy figure released outside of Mighty Morphin White, which is still completely wild to me. But speaking of Wild Force Putrid, Oh, it's great. I love Army Builder figures, so I definitely don't mind buying more than one of this guy for my collection once Wave 13 is more readily available, because right now it still currently isn't at the time of this video. But the paintwork on here is great. The red lines are applied very cleanly, which for Lightning Collection is a very big compliment to give because of how bad the paint applications usually are. I love that metallic purple that we have for like the eyes and the mouth. The club weapon is fun. I think it's a good use of the Astronema effect piece. It's a pinless figure as well, so everything just kind of looks nice and clean. And like, yeah, this is great for an obscure character who like I never would have thought would ever get a Lightning Collection treatment. Like who would have thought that in 2019 when this line started, that like 3 years in, we wouldn't have Time Force Pink in the line, but we would have a Wild Force Putrid, and while that's definitely going to piss some people off, it's one of those things that I love about the Lightning Collection, that we can give some very obscure characters that maybe not a lot of people really want or love, kind of some focus in the spotlight and get some characters out there that people might not even know exist and kind of, get some people introduced to these other seasons and to these other characters. I think is really the strength of the Lightning Collection here, and the Putrid just absolutely represents that, and this is really where the Lightning Collection comes to shine. And speaking of areas where the Lightning Collection shines, number 2 is going to be a tie between the Ryu Ranger figure and the Chun-Li Ranger figure from the Street Fighter collaboration. Now this is going to be one of those things where the collabs are you either like them or you either despise them. Every time one of them gets announced, like for Ninja Turtles or for Street Fighter or for Cobra Kai, you have some people that are like, oh my god, this is awesome, I'm so happy that they're doing the video game characters or the comic characters, Cobra Kai's exist. Or you have fans of the different brands who are excited to get these figures, even if they aren't really Power Rangers fans. They work for 2 different fandoms at the same time, that's why these figures kind of exist in the first place. And for the most part, these are always kind of some of the best Lightning Collection figures we ever get. The Ninja Turtle ones are still like one of the best sets of Lightning Collection figures we've ever had. And the Street Fighters, besides the 2 that Hasbro made up out of nowhere, are also kind of the same level of quality there. And it could be one of those things where they maybe have to appease the licensee holders of the other brands, so they really have to put some extra effort into making these figures a lot better than a typical Lightning Collection figure. But like, it's also one of those things where I didn't know or never would have expected them to actually do this. The Ryu Ranger and Chun-Li Rangers were something that were in video games for years before the Lightning Collection was a thing, and I wasn't sure if they would ever bother to do it. It's always something I wanted them to do. I put it on my wishlist predictions video a year ago for 2022, not knowing at all that they were going to actually happen in 2022. And then we got them, and they turned out so good. The paint applications are fantastic. The sculpting is immaculate. I absolutely love the blast effect pieces to recreate those video game attacks on a figure stand that is compatible with other Lightning Collection figures. While it would have been amazing to see Tom Whalen take a crack at making his artwork on these boxes, they still have very pretty boxes, the best looking plastic-free packaging figure ones we've ever had, with the beautiful backdrops and the amazing side artwork. And these 2 are really good. The other 2 Street Fighter figures, the only 2 Year 4 2022 figures that I do not have in my collection yet, they are probably not going to be terrible figures. They just look very, very bizarre and very, very phoned in by Hasbro. And it's honestly gives even more credit to the other 2 figures looking so good, is that it really brings out how cool these designs were when you actually have them in a physical format. Like I said, something I never would have expected them to actually be able to do, and I'm very happy that Capcom and Hasbro worked together to bring these, to physical life. It's so cool. I love that they have them, and we can move on from Street Fighter after the other 2 because we don't need anything else. We have all the ones that were necessary to represent what happened in the video games with the crossover, and that's exactly what I wanted them to do. Fantastic. And that, of course, brings us to my number 1 favorite Lightning Collection figure of 2022, and it may surprise you, but it is Lost Galaxy Green from Wave 12. This is the perfect Lightning Collection figure. There is nothing that I have problem-wise with this. Unless you get one of the ones that have Mighty Morphin boots, but you're not supposed to get ones with Mighty Morphin boots, so we're just going to pretend like that isn't something that happens to at least like 4 different people. I'm making it not necessarily an isolated event, but I digress. Yes, this is how you do it. So this is how you really bring all of those kind of promised aspects of the Lightning Collection from the initial announcement in Power Morphicon 2018 to an actual figure release. You have a really good civilian head sculpt that I think it really captures the look of Damon from Lost Galaxy. You have the Quasar Saber, you have the Trans Dagger, you have it in holster mode as well, so you can have a really nice display with him having it holstered while holding the Trans Dagger, or you can have him with the full-on regular version. They have the correct symbol on there. They didn't have to have fans give them feedback like they did for Lost Galaxy Blue to correct paint mistakes or printing mistakes. He was right straight from the get-go. He has beautiful box artwork, one of the last Tom Whalen ones for the line, which was definitely going to be missed after this year's figures. I really am really sad that we're not going to get Tom Whalen artwork on these anymore. The figure body sculpt has been reused for a number of times at this point, but is getting better and better with paint applications, making those Charlie Brown lines actually match up. The helmet sculpt, I have no problems with whatsoever. It's exactly what you would want to have a Lightning Collection figure. I cannot think of like a single thing, except for like if you want to have a Quasar launcher to kind of match Leo or something like that, but Hasbro's been very inconsistent with what Lost Galaxy Rangers have anyway. But he has exactly what Damon's going to need, to where I don't think a lot of people are really going to complain about what he has. There's really not anything he's missing. There's nothing that we had to have them fix. Like I said, there's just those weird isolated incidents where he has Mighty Morphin black boots for some reason. But, you know, moving past that weird anomaly with some factory errors, this is perfect. I have no problems with this figure whatsoever. This is what I want the quality of every Lightning Collection figure to be. Because I don't have to look at this and go, yeah, it's good, but it's missing that paint application there, or it doesn't match this paint application from 2 waves ago, or this accessory is missing, or Hasbro has to correct that helmet, or whatever it may be. I just look at the figure, I compose it really cool with a really awesome, cool, special custom effect piece, which I love when they do that as well. That is only going to be applicable to Damon and not really be able to be used anywhere else. So that's another plus for him as well. I don't know why they went so crazy to make Damon's figure so good, but I'm really glad that they did, and that's why it is coming in at number 1 on my list for 2022 Lightning Collection figures. Alright, and with that is going to do it for my list of top 5 worst Lightning Collection figures and top 10 best Lightning Collection figures for 2022. Out of the 29 figures released this year, we definitely had some very interesting ones out there. It furthered the Lightning Collection in a lot of different ways, brought in some interesting stuff with deluxe figures, with more collabs, with more monsters, completing some more teams, starting some new teams. It definitely is a year that definitely furthered the Lightning Collection to be able to do bigger and better things, while also dwelling on some very consistent problems that really do need to be worked out to make this line even better. I think this year was definitely a bumpy road compared to the pretty impressive performance of 2021's figure lineup, but with some of the ones that we've seen so far for 2023, and some ones that I hope that we're going to be getting in the future, I think Lightning Collection can really only go up from here, or maybe it can kind of just plateau. I'm not really sure, but let me know down in the comments below. What do you think of the 2022 lineup for the Power Rangers Lightning Collection? What were some of your favorite figures? What were some of your least favorite figures? And did you collect all 29 figures that were released this year? I'm releasing this video pretty much at the end of 2022 here, so hopefully no other figures released out of nowhere. I'd say Matt to add another one to this list. I'm looking at you, Coda. You have the best chance of that happening since all of your wave mates came out in this year, and you might not make it to 2023, so we'll see what happens with that. But unless Coda or something drops like that, this is where the Lightning Collection is going to end for this year, and I cannot wait to see what we have for 2023. So until next time, you guys can follow me on Twitter, @LivingRangerKey or @LightningFigPR, and I'll see you all next time.